All right, welcome to the first ever episode of the show. We're going to talk all things hockey. We're your hosts. I'm Rye. He's Jeff. We're both fans of some different teams. I'm a fan of the Leafs. Jeff's a fan of the Sens. We're going to talk about all things around the NHL. All that being said, us being fans of those teams, probably we'll talk about those teams a little bit more, but we do plan on talking about the rest of the teams as well. We may also talk to some fans of other teams to get their analysis of how their teams are doing, just when we want some more in-depth insight into what we're talking about. So let's just jump right into the game last night. Leafs played Ottawa. Jeff, what did you think of the game? And give me your analysis of how Ottawa looked and what you thought they could improve and what they did well.
Yeah, I think overall it wasn't. I don't want to say it definitely wasn't a good game from an Ottawa fan standpoint or from Ottawa's standpoint. It just looked like Toronto controlled most of the game. The one thing that really stuck out to me was just Ottawa's power play just did not look good. I couldn't figure out if Toronto's penalty kill was that great or it was Ottawa's power play was that bad. But there's no rhythm, there was no flow to it, and it kind of really took the wind out of the sails when they had opportunities to try and get back in the game and tie the game back up. And when it was a 2-1 game, and I just really felt that kind of slowed them down a little bit. I feel like they got away from what they did good on Friday night, which was establishing a forecheck and just being heavy on pucks and getting pucks to the net. Like Campbell was not tested enough last night, in my opinion. And I just felt they strayed away a little bit from their game plan for sure.
Do you know which assistant coach is running the power play there? I know for the Leafs, Manny Malhotra, the new assistant there, he's running the power play, and obviously things have looked pretty good on the power play for the Leafs since he's come in. But I'm not sure I know who's running it in Ottawa. Do you know?
I'm not too sure if it is the Jack guy. I forget his last name. I can't pronounce it, from the Islanders old coach there.
Capiano.
Yeah. I'm not too sure if it's him or if it's DJ, because I know it's been struggling. This has been a thing in Ottawa now, special teams this is going on 3 years. Obviously with a bottom feeder team like they've been the last 3 years, special teams is always going to be hard to come by, right? When you got, the likes of Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Riley, and Tavares typically on the ice for a minute or so. Like, that's just such potent offense right there coming at you, right? So, I mean, it's going to be hard to keep pucks out of your net regardless, but it's something they're going to have to true up going forward. Again, if they're going to be anywhere better than what they were last year, special teams is a great place for them to start.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think that I do agree with you there that the Leafs outplayed Ottawa, obviously even just by shots, 40-19. A lot of play was dictated in Ottawa's end. But that being said, Matt Murray played himself a pretty good game, I thought. And actually, even in the first game on Friday night, I thought that Murray played, pretty well, all things considered. I thought the goals that he let in, I wouldn't really attribute to him being in misposition or just playing poorly. I thought he played pretty well. It was just defensive breakdowns by the team. What are your thoughts on Murray and how he's looked so far 2 games in?
Oh, definitely agree with you. Like, if you look at last night's game, Ottawa's not even in a game if it's not for Matt Murray making the saves he did. That game could have easily been 5-1, 6-1 game, blown right out of the water. Murray just looks like he's seeing the puck well, tracking it well. He's just standing in there tall, being patient, and just letting the game kind of come to him, and that's just right into his breadbasket and making those saves, right? So I think all around it's definitely looking, it's early to make the jump to assumptions or anything, right? But you can see that this new start is I think it looks like a good thing for Matt Murray and the Ottawa Senators. He was by far their best player on the ice last night. I mean, it shouldn't even have been a 3-2 game there.
He looked very calm, and he looked like he was in control of his play. He was controlling his rebounds well. But yeah, very calm. I found last year in Pittsburgh when he was struggling anyways, he got a little jittery and kind of bouncy and felt maybe he was a little, not nervous, but just felt like maybe there was too much pressure or whatever the case may be. But whatever the change is coming over to Ottawa, whether it's the coaching or whatever it is, it seems like he's found that calmness that led him to those 2 Stanley Cups. and when he played well. And, hopefully for you guys, he continues that, because if you guys want to, to be in games and all that stuff with all your young players, you're going to need a solid goaltender back there. And I think making that trade to get him was obviously a huge key for you guys this last offseason. I knew that Craig Anderson wasn't going to be the answer if you guys wanted to be somewhat competitive. So definitely think that, that's looking like a good signing so far. Let's hope he continues it. Speaking of new players, Tim Stützle, or Stützle, however you want to pronounce it, turning 19 on Friday there, first 2 NHL games. Big prospect, top forward at the World Juniors. What are your thoughts on his first 2 games in the NHL and how he looks, and how do you see his season going?
Yeah, for sure. You can tell with any new NHL first game, second game in, there's going to be nerves. You're going to be jittery for sure. I thought he definitely looked nervous, and you could tell at times the game just closes that much quicker at the NHL level, right? Like, you could tell he's just used to having that extra half second with the puck, where at the NHL the game seems to collapse so quick on you, especially just starting out. Last night during the game, maybe it was the frustration being down 3-1, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, but as a fan of Ottawa, I'm sitting there thinking, maybe just a little bit time in the minors might help his development just a little bit. And then boom, there he goes with an electrifying shot. That's just a beautiful goal that it just shows the talent that he can bring to the game and how he can just change the game in a moment just like that. So, I'm like, going forward, I don't know what would be the best for his development, honestly. I think right now, like, I would hate to say, a goal changes everything, but, I think maybe they just keep riding this out. And I think over the next couple games and see how it goes. It's just a touch and go type thing for now, right? I don't think there needs to be anything set in stone and we just go game by game. I mean, there's a lot of young players in Ottawa that are going to be chomping at the bit to get a chance in that lineup, like Logan Brown to be not even on the taxi squad, right? I'm sure he's not happy about that. You got Alex Fermenta down there in the minors as well. Colin White checked back into the lineup last night. He was out in game 1 as a healthy scratch. There's Galchenyuk. There's players that can come in and fill roles, right? But it's like, we got Stützle to be that top line guy. So, in respect, he's got to be playing there and staying there. And I think it's just a matter of time that time will tell in the next week or two what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, he played with men in Germany the last couple of years. He had a pretty good season last year in Germany with men again. He looked great in the World Juniors. He's obviously a big kid. He's not a small guy by any means. He's 6 foot, just shy of 200 pounds. He's very fleet of foot. He moves really well. He looks pretty strong defensively. He doesn't look like he's going to cough up the puck or anything like that in the defensive end. Offensively, I thought he looked quiet at times, almost to the point where you couldn't notice him. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just going to take him some time to gain that confidence and get that swagger that young players get when they're playing in the NHL. Like I said, he really reminds me, actually all of Ottawa really reminds me of the 16 Leafs there when Matthews and Marner and Nylander came in. They would go through big stretches of the game where, that you weren't really noticing that they were on the ice or that they were doing anything electrifying, but they had that talent to have that kind of game breaker, situation where they could score a goal or make a nice pass to score a goal or whatever the case is, make a fancy dangle to get around a guy or whatever the case is. Obviously, Ottawa's a little, every team for that matter is in a tough situation with these young kids, not having really OHL to send them to, or even the AHL. That stuff's still weeks away. So what do you do with them in the meantime? I think because Stützle does have that experience playing with men. He has been playing because he played in the World Juniors. He's not like everybody else where he hadn't been playing for months and months and months. I do think the best spot for him right now is to stay with the team and, like you said, kind of see how the next few weeks plays out. And if it seems like he needs more time to develop before he gets more of a full-time shot with the club, send him to the AHL. and let him develop a little bit. But I think, anything that Ottawa does this year is going to be playing with house money. They look like they're, going to be, they're not going to be a contender, and I don't mean any offense by that, but I do think that, they're going to catch some people by surprise. I think they caught the Leafs by surprise on Friday night with their speed and their assertiveness. And I think that, it might not be a bad spot for him to be, to kind of just keep his legs under him and keep going and get that swagger that he has. And you guys have some good veterans too, Derek Stepan and, among others that can kind of lead the way for him and show him how to be a good pro on and off the ice. Speaking of the game and the Leafs in Ottawa last night, obviously Anderson was in net on Friday night and let in 5 goals and to a loss. Jack Campbell comes in last night and only lets in 2 goals and the Leafs win. Was Jack Campbell that good? Like you had mentioned before, he wasn't tested a whole lot. Or was it an Ottawa issue, or did the Leafs just play better? Really, it's just, I know there's a lot of Leafs fans out there that are really wondering what's going on with Anderson. He's a perennial slow starter. The Leafs don't really have time for him to wait for him to get better. So what do the Leafs do? Do they start Campbell on Monday? Do they go back to Anderson and try to get him going? What does the Leafs look like for Anderson if you're Keefe? Do you play him? Do you start him? Do you sit him? What's going on in Leafs land there, and what are your thoughts on Anderson and how he's, like I said, perennially a slow starter, and what can the Leafs do in order to make sure that they're giving themselves the best chance to win?
Yeah, I think this is nothing new. Like, you're a Toronto fan, Rye. You know that you get one great game out of him. The next game he goes and drops like an 8.85 save percentage, and then the next game he'll follow it up with a .966 or something crazy. Like, he's always kind of been flashy of really great and then not so good and then good and all right. There's just his biggest struggle has always been consistency in the net. And after the game last night, all my wife's family, they're huge Leaf fans, and a couple of them are siding on, like, do we put Campbell in next game? Like, that's legitimately the concern in Leaf Nation right now, is not even playing their starter. But I think if you go back to Friday's game when Anderson was in net, like, I can't really fault him on any goals other than, was it the 4th goal by Tierney? Maybe, like, that was a little scramble play out front of the net and it just kind of popped in. That was a bad one. But, I mean, you look at Austin Watson's goal, that's a point-blank shot within, 15, 20 feet out. Like, that's a clean shot, going to beat him clean anytime. Like, it was a nice shot. Tkachuk's goal, beautiful tip, right? Going to the dirty areas right out front of the net. Beautiful tip. Nothing you can do there. Derek Stefan's goal in the 3rd, a nice little jam play. I think it was I don't know if it was a rebound or if it hit a shin pad out front, and it kind of popped right on his stick, and he cleaned it up. I can't really fault and say, at the same time, does he need to make a timely save, right, to keep his team in it?
Which he did against Montreal, right? Like, he didn't play overly great in that Montreal game, but he did make a huge save in overtime, and it ultimately won the Leafs the game. So it's hard to. I agree. Like, he's very inconsistent, and there's some of those goals against Ottawa on Friday night. I thought, should he have had that one? Maybe not. Could we have used the save? Definitely. And I think Keefe said it best in his post game after that game. He said, we were letting too many goals in. Basically, I'm paraphrasing him, but that's just too many goals. 5 is too many. You can't win every game 6-5. So whether it's the goalie's fault or the team's fault or whatever the case is, you got to get stops. And every team, regardless, even the best defensive teams, are going to have breakdowns once in a while, and that can't just end up in your net. So I don't know what the solution is. So I guess going forward, part of that question is, obviously Campbell hasn't proven himself as a starter. So it's really hard to say, what do we do? Do we keep giving the net to Anderson? Do you give him 2 more games to try to get his game together before, you hand over the reins to Campbell? Anderson's in a contract year. You would think that would lead to better play. Maybe it's too much pressure. I don't know. But if you're the Leafs, what do you do with this guy? Do you kind of play out the season to see how he plays and then try to maybe offer him a contract after the fact? Do you think he's just going to cost too much money and you let him walk at the end of the season and go forward with Campbell and pick yourself up another goalie? What do they do?
Well, you and I both know right now that if Toronto's winning a cup this year, Anderson is going to be the goalie. Like, who else are they going to go and get that's better than him who can get the job done? I think, there's a lot of panic setting in. It's early. The game against Montreal, he posted an .875 save percentage, and then against Ottawa, he followed up with a .792 save percentage. So not great numbers, but if I got some stats here in front of me here. If you go back to last year's season, I got his 5 games here. So the first game, they beat Ottawa. This is going back last year. He posted an .885 save percentage. And then the next game, he follows it up with a .966 save percentage. And then another 900 and then a 750. So, you can see the inconsistency. And right after the 750, he goes and posts a 926. And then you go back another year, back to 18-19 season, he's posting a 944 to start the season and then follows it up with a .826, a .882, and then a .897, and then goes and gets a win with a 9.26. But those middle games I just said, he still won some of those games, posting .882 save percentages and that. I think that's kind of always been Toronto's identity in the last couple of years, right? I don't think you can put all this on the goaltender. They got to clean up in front of their net. TJ Brody did not have a good game on Friday night. That was noticeable. Just in spurts, like the whole second period there after Kerfoot's goal, it kind of looked like Toronto was just disengaged from the game. Like it was just like Ottawa just poured it on and, Toronto just couldn't match intensity. And really that 10 minutes in the second period kind of cost them the game. They were down, 4-2 at that point. I don't want to say that was the game. It's not the game by far, but you're behind the 8 ball to start the third. You're down 2 goals, and then who's more hungry? Who's going to get the next one in the third? And Ottawa came out and got another one and just patting the lead a bit. So I don't know. Like, I think if there was a better option, like realistically, they couldn't afford maybe what Montreal did with Allen. Like, do you know what that contract was worth? What Jake Allen signed for?
I think so. He still had a year left on his deal. It's around $4 million that they're paying him this year. But then going forward, they re-signed him to an extension. I think it's like 2 years at 2.5. I want to say $2.5 million per, which isn't terrible for a backup. It's a lot of money when you're paying your starter $10 million, but that's acceptable as a backup. Obviously, this year $4 million for a backup's a lot, but I think going forward they'll be fine. But they made that position a priority, and when you're paying a goalie like Price $10 million, obviously Anderson's not making $10 million. I don't think he would deserve to make that much money. But Price is in another category. Like, Price is a proven, solid goaltender for most of his career. Other than his very early days, I thought he had some struggles. But as he got a little bit older, he became Carey Price. And Anderson, like I said, has shown spurts that he's able to do that. But on a consistent basis, I don't see it. And every October, like you've talked about, going back with your stats there, he has not proven that he's good to start the season. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's, not training hard enough in the off season, just, not seeing any pucks through the summer or whatever the case is. I don't know. Like, Anderson seems like he's in pretty good shape. They talk about how big he is and, that he seems like he's really good shape based on what everybody says. But so I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if it's a mental thing or what the case is, but you can't start the season for the first month of the season and be god awful. You just can't do it. So I think that's going to play into, especially if this poor play continues going over the first month here. If the Leafs get below 500 because of his poor play, I can't imagine, even if he redeems himself and plays good the rest of the season, I still don't think that the Leafs will re-sign him at the end of the year. Even if he wins a cup, I don't think that they would re-sign him. I think he's going to demand too much money. And I just don't. If I'm the Leafs, if I'm Kyle Dubas, I do not sign that contract. He's an older goalie. I think he's 30.
31.
31. So I just don't see how you can re-sign him just with the lack of consistency that he's shown. Obviously, the rest of the season will play out. We're 3 games in, so we'll see. But I think it would be a mistake for the Leafs to sign him. That being said, I don't know how comfortable I'd be with going forward with just Jack Campbell. I think I'd feel a lot better if you could go out and get a bona fide number 1. But you know, a lot of young goalies have come in, like goalies like Carter Hart. Obviously, Carter Hart's a lot younger than Campbell, but you know, young goalies are coming in and proving that they're able to play at a high level. So I guess we'll have to see how the season goes. But if I'm the Leafs, I really think, you know, I wouldn't be signing him mid-season for sure. I know they like him, but
just one thing that came to mind here as you're talking, and I'm like, could this ever get worked out? Would you be okay trading Anderson to the Golden Knights in return for Fleury? Because it's a contract dump for Vegas would take it because it clears up Fleury. Because I think Fleury's got 2 years left, right? He's got this year next.
Yeah, it's 7. Yeah.
And then that would clear up Vegas's cap space into next year, which they need. And then it gives you guys a chance to go at it this year at least. That's just some food for thought, right? Like I mean,
if that deal existed, I think the Leafs would be listening. Although I don't know, Dubas.
Like there would be a player going back. Like I think Vegas would still want either like a second for third or like I don't know, like straight up. Would you rather have Fleury than Anderson? Like right now, like if you had to make that decision, would you go out and do that? Like if that was even there? Without
looking at stats, honestly, I'm a Marc-Andre Fleury fan. I think he's been a solid goalie. He's proven that he's played solid in the playoffs for most of his career. He's got a Stanley Cup. I mean, I think if I had to choose between the two of them, regardless of the pieces that are attached to the deal, I still think I'd probably take Fleury. I know a lot of people would probably disagree with that, but I know there's a lot of people not high on Anderson either. So I think if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably take Fleury just because I'm a fan of his. But I don't know what that deal would look like. I know the Leafs are tied up against the cap, and then you're talking about another increase of $2 million. So
that is right. Yeah, I didn't. It's the extra $2 million, right?
Yeah,
that would really come to bite, and it's where do you free that up? There's got to be a solution going forward, but I just can't see it. Like without Anderson in the net this year for you guys, I don't know how you guys are going to win a cup. He's a good goalie, man. I get it. He's inconsistent, but he's right up there with the best when he's on his game. And of course you could say that about any goalie, but I just think a great goalie. I say, as fans and as coaches, and at times you just got to be a little patient. To me, if I'm Keith, I'm going right back to Anderson Monday night against Winnipeg. He's getting that net. He's going to go in. He's going to do what he does, and he's going to go probably post a .926 or something stupid, and they'll win, 5-2 or who knows, right? But, the Jets got that high-flying offense. I think I personally, what do you do? Like, hey, so if you go the other route, you put Campbell in Monday night, he gets lit for 6, and then then what? Then you say, okay, Anderson, here's your net back. Like, now you just shot your confidence in the backup goalie. When you have a starting goalie, to me, two okay games. Yeah, they weren't great games, but he still went 1-1. He still got you guys the win against Montreal. And yeah, his number, he didn't look good on Friday night against Ottawa, but again, like, you really can't blame him on a few of those goals. Like, some of them were just nice goals. Ottawa was outworking Toronto. My question to you would be, and no, I don't want you to feel disrespected by me asking this, but is like the goaltending situation in Toronto, has this been their kryptonite from like the last 10, 15 years, and they just can't figure
since Belfour, honestly.
Like, no, I don't mean that in disrespect, dude. But in all honesty, like, it's got to be a question, right? Like, every time a goalie's come in there, you think they're going to be the next thing, and it seems like, and they're good goalies who have been in there. It's not like they've been terrible goalies that have gone in and played for Toronto. Like, look at Bernier last night. He had a great game for the Wings. I don't know what he posted. It was in the 900 save percentage. Great game. Got him a 4-2 win. So it's not like Toronto hasn't had good goalies or great goalies go in there over the last little bit. It just seems that I don't know if it's the pressure or whatever it is, but you know what, with COVID this year, I actually think it would really help Toronto in the sense there's got to be less media in their face, less media around them, asking them all those questions. It's got to be a little bit easier on a team like Toronto and Montreal that are just hounded by the media, right? You would think.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a big help for a lot of those media-heavy teams. Not having that this year, I think, it's different when you're doing Zoom calls and interviews after the games or practices versus having, guys in the dressing room and with microphones shoved in your face. So I do think there's that. I do agree, though, with Anderson. I think you have to go back with him Monday night. Putting Campbell in is a lose-lose situation. He plays good, and then what do? You give him, you keep riding the hot hand and just keep
exactly.
That's just going to tank Anderson's confidence. I know a lot of the guys on the panel last night on Sportsnet were saying, keep the hot hand and play Campbell, but I think then you tank Anderson's his confidence, and then, like you said, if the Leafs are going to contend for a Stanley Cup, Anderson's got to be the guy. He's got to be.
And he has to be.
So if he's
my father-in-law was saying that last night. Huge Leaf fan. He said, he's called it out. He said, that's their guy. He's gonna be your guy if they're getting the cup. He's their guy going forward. You got to show him that he is your number one. You go back to him on Monday night and you see how it goes. You hope to get a win and just go forward from there. I think going back to him, and I don't even think it should be a question whether they go back to him or not, in my opinion. But that's just me looking at it, right? But
yeah, no, I'm kind of just speaking. I know, just looking on, social media and whatnot, and I know how Leafs fans think, seeing how there's always seems like there's a goalie controversy and a lot of hate goes towards Anderson. However, like I said, he's got to be your guy. You got to let him get his confidence back, and he's got to get his game going. So, some of this is on him. He's got to play well. He's got to do it consistently. The Leafs need to play better in front of him, no doubt about it. But he has to be the guy. The other thing is he's never got it done in the playoffs. He's never had a good a series where he was the best goalie of the series. It's always been the other goalie. So he really needs to have a good season and have a good playoffs if he even wants a chance to stay with the Leafs. And then, contract aside, whether the Leafs can afford him or whatever, those things would need to happen in order for the Leafs to ever think about bringing him back, I would imagine. Kind of wanted to segue into a different game here. I know we've been talking a lot about the Leafs in Ottawa here, but there's a lot of things going on in the North Division. Montreal and Edmonton played last night. Big win by Montreal, 5-1 after the overtime loss in the league. Price came in and had a much better game, in my opinion. He looked very calm in the net. In the first game against Toronto, I thought he was a little bit shaky. Kind of had some rebounds get away from him, but in this game against Edmonton, he just shut everybody out. He did let the one goal in late there to lose the shutout, but he played exceptional. Tatar's goal was just a snipe. What a goal by him. What was your thoughts on the game? And Montreal as a whole, I think they're looking. I was really surprised how they played in the playoffs last year. I know they didn't go too far, but I think they surprised some people that really surprised me, considering they wouldn't have made the playoffs if it wasn't for the bubble. It looks like they just picked up right where they left off. What are your thoughts on Montreal? And what do you think that's going to be a realistic expectation for them this year?
Yeah, I really like Bergeron went and did there. I think he brought in a couple good pieces that can really help them right now and filled some voids that were maybe in their lineup. And they got a lot of young rookies that are kind of coming up and getting a chance, right? Like Suzuki picked up another point last night. If Weber can stay healthy, I think that's huge. How much does Anderson, how much of an impact will he have going forward? I know his first game against the Leafs, he looked awesome, 2 goals in the game. He blew by John Tavares there in that second goal. I couldn't even believe it was Tavares he's dancing around, right? For how big he is and whatnot. He moves really well. Being an Ottawa fan, I hate to say it, but I think Montreal is definitely a realistic expectation for them. I think would definitely to win a playoff series or two. I don't know if I'd push it any further past that, but when you got Carey Price in your net, you and I both know from him playing for Team Canada, when Price is on his game, he is hands down the best goalie in the world. That's, to me, might be a little bit of an overstatement, but I don't know who can compete with Price when he's on his game. Honestly, he's just so good, man. And if Price gets the rest he deserves and much needed this season with Allen as his backup, this could be a whole new team if they roll into the playoffs healthy. Like, it's gonna be something to follow closely, because them and Toronto are gonna be, because they would meet in the second round, I think, probably, if they do face off.
Yeah, it depends on how the division plays out, but no, I agree. He looked really good, and I do think he's the best goalie when he's on his game. But yeah, no, I really like their additions too on the back end. Edmondson, I know a lot of people aren't a huge fan of his, but another big body. Chariot there, he's another big body, but they all can skate. They can all play. They really do a good job of protecting their goalies. It seems like Claude Julien's defensive system has worked for them so far. I know they had a couple goals sneak in there against the Leafs that cost them, but I think they let their foot off the gas a little bit, kind of like the Leafs did on Friday night against Ottawa when they were up 2-1. But obviously, you can see what they did against Edmonton, basically, shutting out McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, which is easier said than done, getting the 5-1 win. I think, that's something that we can expect to see more of this year. I think Montreal's really going to surprise some people just with how good they are. Like you said, Anderson's looked really, really good to start the season. I think that's going to be a big addition for them. Gallagher is Gallagher, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, he's a pretty little guy that, he's kind of like a Brad Marchand for the Montreal Canadiens. Like, he's a player that you hate playing against. He's just going to get under your skin. And, every team wishes they could have, 5 of those guys. But I think, I hate to say it because I hate Montreal, but I think that, they're going to be a real test for the top of the division, and be interesting to see how the season unfolds for them. Speaking of goaltending in that game, Koskinen was playing and did not play very well for Edmonton. And I don't know if you've seen, but Mike Smith just went on the IR. It's not looking good for him. I was kind of skeptical of their goaltending to begin with Koskinen and Mike Smith. But, now just Koskinen, potentially, I know Aaron Dell was on waivers today with Jason Spezza, and I think that, there's a good chance that Edmonton tries to claim him. But, how comfortable do you think they feel going forward with Koskinen? Obviously hasn't looked very strong. And really
they knew this going in, though, right? Like, you got Mike Smith and Koskinen going in to start the season. What's his Cheveldayoff? Is I say it right? The GM there? No,
that's in Winnipeg. They got Kenny Holland there.
No, so who was before the Boston GM there that went there? He's fired now.
Chiarelli went there.
Chiarelli.
Yeah.
Okay. I shouldn't laugh, but I think he kind of left that team in a bad state, right?
Oh, I agree.
So I think it's been, Holland's in there now. He's trying to patch up wounds and whatnot, but the goaltending's got to be addressed for sure. Like with Edmonton, they're a team I would have pegged to finish second in the division. Watching the first 3 games, like, I'm thinking they're going to be just fighting to make it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that an understatement? Like, they barely, you got the best player in McDavid, and they're just not seeming to pull together. Like, it's like he can't score a hat trick every night, right? Or can he? Well, he might. Sure he could.
Yeah, he might. He might.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, not like, to me, and obviously it's easy to say, well, Montreal smoked them 5-1 last night, but the way Montreal's looked first 3 games in, I would say Montreal's going to be second now in the division, and I would say Calgary and Edmonton will be fighting for maybe the 3rd or 4th, but I would even be hard-pressed to say that Vancouver's not going to be right there in the mix, too, so... And everyone counts Winnipeg in this division, not to change the subject or anything, right? Or to get on the Oilers, off the Oilers goaltending situation, but we know there's holes there. It's got to be addressed in Edmonton with the goaltending. Hands down, they got to do something. They've kind of addressed every area but that. But
I'm surprised. Sorry to cut you off. I'm surprised that they didn't go and get Matt Murray when you guys did, because I really don't think you paid a whole lot to get Murray. And knowing what Edmonton had in their net. I'm surprised that they did not go out and try to make a bigger push to get Murray. But go ahead.
With an Oilers standpoint, like, I don't know how much cap space they had or anything, or if they didn't think they could get a deal done with Murray. Like, obviously Ottawa overpaid for Murray. I'm never gonna not argue anyone on that. I think, Dorian went out and
they overpaid for him right now, but that contract could look really good in a year or two.
Exactly, man. Like, there's a lot of upside to Murray. And when Ottawa finally starts to see their rookies become more stable, then into a second and maybe a third year, like, what's this team going to look like in 2-3 years from an Ottawa standpoint? And then you got a veteran goalie that's 28 at now, and you're in the playoffs with Matt Murray. He's already won a couple cups. He's got a team in front of him now. Like you said, that could be a very good contract where you're paying your goalie. It's only $6 million to a goalie who's like playing the best goaltender maybe in the league in a couple of years from now, right? I don't know. So there's a lot of hope, a lot of upside to that, like you said. But yeah, the Oilers are gonna have to do something. Holland, I feel bad for him. He's gonna be putting in overtime and just scratching his head the next couple weeks, I'm sure, trying to figure something out. Can McDavid play goalie? Do you know? Or
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's got everything else. It wouldn't surprise me if he went in there and got the or something. But he, I don't know. I mean,
that good, right? But it's tough. It's tough.
I'm not a big fan of the Oilers' depth. I'm not trying to hate on the Oilers or Oilers fans, but I'm not a big fan of their third and fourth line. I still think.
Hold the phone though. Like, you got Kyle Turris on his third line center. What do you mean you're not a big fan? Like, obviously I'm a little biased here. You played Ottawa, but like, you got Jesse Pillarvy there trying to, they're pulling him back up, and I mean, there's hope there. For me, it's kind of their blue line a bit. Like, I don't know what I could pinpoint with the Oilers, what it is, but
their blue maybe they're not strong.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough road for them. I think the team down the road from them, Calgary, I really like their additions in the offseason. Did they overpay for Tanev? Yes. Did they overpay for Markstrom? Yes. But I think those are the pieces that they were kind of missing a little bit. And even though they lost Brody and they replaced him with Tanev, I really like their additions. I think that Calgary could have a sneaky good season this year. Could be the best team of the Western Canadian teams. Potentially, like you had brought up Winnipeg there a couple minutes ago. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do. Obviously, having a Vezina-winning goalie in Hellebuck, but that kind of depends on a few different things. We'll get to Winnipeg in a couple minutes, but really like Calgary's additions. They've looked strong to start the season. Vancouver, I think, is going to be an interesting case. Losing Markstrom, obviously, you bring in Holtby. What Holtby are you getting? Are you getting last year's Holtby or the last couple of years of Holtby, where he started to age and not look so good? Or are you going to see Holtby from a few years ago where he was still really strong? Because a good 5-year stretch where he was near the top of the goaltending statistics for a number of years, and he was really solid. And then all of a sudden he started to tail off, and whether that was a result of Washington not being strong defensively or what the case was, but he really, really tailed off. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens in Vancouver this year. I know they have a lot of cap tied up to a lot of their lower end players, guys like Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, guys that they're paying a lot of money that are playing on their third and fourth line with in combination with all these young guys. Like, they have Pettersson, they have Quinn Hughes, they have Bo Horvat, they have Besser, they have all these guys that, they're a really strong team, but they're really spending a lot of money on their lower end guys. And then with a goaltending tandem that you're not really sure how it's going to play out, it could be an interesting case. They're a team to watch. I think it's going to be a storyline whether they're really good or really bad. So hopefully they're not somewhere in between, because that would be kind of boring. I think the Canadian division and all, I think, is going to be really interesting this year.
I love it. How can you not, right? Like, that's the thing about it is just awesome. Like, to see, Ottawa and Toronto 9 times, Montreal and Toronto, Montreal and Ottawa, and then you got even the West Coast teams. It's always like, as an Ottawa fan, I've always loved when Ottawa's head out west to play Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. Those are games I stay up for more than the times I'll stay up for San Jose and LA. Like, I want to see the Canadian teams. That's just me being the Canadian blood that's in me, right? I love the game and got such a passion for any of the Canadian teams. It's hard for me to never not cheer for a Canadian team, whether it's even the Leafs in the playoffs, Montreal in the playoffs. I just want to see the Canadian teams always do good. I think this year it's going to be fun. It's something we definitely shouldn't take for granted. Yes, there's no fans in the building. It's a lot different than what we're used to. It doesn't seem as fun at times without the fans. The fans do help make that game, but the hockey's been great, nothing short of great. Last year's bubble in the playoffs for the Cup, that was great hockey. Watching hockey in the middle of the summer, and then on top, it was excellent hockey. Guys were really laying it on the line and really giving her out there. So I just think, we shouldn't take this year for granted with this all Canadian division and really take it for what it is and enjoy the hockey that we're given.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like Bill Daly was on Tim and Sid there earlier in the week and said this is a one and done for the Canadian teams, which I think we could have expected just with how revenue sharing goes and trying to support the smaller teams in the States and all that stuff. So I understand why they're making it a one and done, but I think, like you said, we need to appreciate how special this season will be with being the all Canadian division and really giving a Canadian team a pretty decent chance at winning the Cup, first time since '92 when Montreal won. Realistically, because you're going to have a Canadian team in the conference finals, right? You're going to have a Canadian team basically a series away from the Stanley Cup when it's all said and done. So I think that's exciting just for Canadian fans in general. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. That's for sure. You had mentioned Winnipeg there a couple minutes ago. I wanted to touch on them a little bit. I know that they're starting the season well. They made some additions, bringing Stastny back from LA or from Vegas rather. But the big storyline out of Winnipeg, I think, has got to be Patrick Laine wanting out of Winnipeg, wanting to be traded. I think that along with him and Dubois in Columbus, a lot of these young players trying to dictate where they want to play their NHL careers. All the power to them. I think that it is important that you're happy. I don't think that the team that drafts you should hold all your rights. But what are your thoughts on Laine and Dubois and why these guys may want to leave these respective markets? Is it just because that they're smaller market teams? Is it they don't like the coaching necessarily? Maybe Paul Maurice has been known to be a tough guy to work with. He's a tough coach. He tells it how it is. If you're not playing the way that he sees fit, he's going to let you know. Tortorella, obviously, we know what the reputation is for him around the league. But I remember in the playoffs last year when the Columbus was playing the Leafs, Dubois came off a shift and Tortorella just ripped into him. Just yelled at him on the bench like crazy. Now, mind you, Dubois did go out and score a couple more goals the next game, but it's kind of interesting. He's not really saying why he wants to leave Columbus. So, what are your thoughts on these young guys trying to get trades out of these smaller markets? Is it just being from a small market? Do you think it's the coaching? What do you think it is?
Like with Lonnie, I don't know if he thinks like he's not going to be respected and get the money that he deserves in Winnipeg. So maybe he's already wanting to jump ship instead of go through arbitration and go through all that, bogus that he's going to have to go through. Because obviously Winnipeg bridged him, right? So he's coming off his bridge deal now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he probably just wants it. He probably doesn't want to have to go through all that again. I would think with Lonnie, that would be the huge point. And it's Winnipeg, right? Like what, you're up there in the dead middle of winter. It's like minus, 30 out and there's no mountains, no hills. It's flat ground. It's dark. It's cold. Who knows? Maybe he just wants a fresh start, but and Dubois, like that one stuns me. I have no clue. Like Columbus has a decent squad there. Tortorella.
He plays a prominent role on that
right.
team.
He's like a top,
center, right?
He's their go-to guy. Like look what he did in the playoffs last year. And to just, I don't know. Like I get it. I understand that guys should have a somewhat of a say where they get to play. Like, like you and I, at the end of the day, if we're not happy with their job, we can get up and go find a new one. Right.
Yep.
So, but it's just tough for me to see, man. I just don't like it. It reminds me of the NBA. It's like guys just picking and choosing where they want to go and what they want to do and how much money they're going to make. And, you know, we've really seen a shift in sports in the last 2-3 years, really, with contracts and guys picking and choosing where they want to go and making sure they get paid what they feel they're worth, right? It's like they want to get paid for them at their best, but they don't want to, you know, like it just puts a lot of pressure on them, right? Like, I don't know. There's no, like, what can you do to correct it? You can't do anything. You got to, like you said, Rye, earlier, you got to give them some respect that they can kind of, they have a say, right, where they want to go or what they want to do, right? But
it's tough. Yeah, no, it's a tough situation. Like if I'm Kekalainen in there in Columbus, what do? I mean, do you want a player that doesn't want to be there? I've always been a big proponent of, if the guy doesn't want to be there, I don't care what type of player it is. If he's your top end player, low end player, I don't care. If you don't want to be there, you don't want to wear that jersey, get rid of him. That being said, you know, you can't just wholesale the team because guys don't want to be there. They've already lost Bobrovsky, which, I mean, it turns out that's probably a good thing.
Oh, for
but
sure.
Panarin left. Duchesne left. You know, all these guys have left Columbus. And I don't know. And now Duba wants to leave. Your top line center, you drafted in 3rd overall. You know, and when they made that pick, I think a lot of people were kind of looking like, wow, I can't believe they passed up on Puljujarvi there. And then Edmonton was licking their chops, and it's actually turned out to be a really good pick. But now all of a sudden he wants out. So was it really a good pick after all? It's hard to, I mean, I guess you have to trade him, but, you know, it's hard because what do you get back for him? And if you don't get enough back for him, that's not going to look good on you either. So it's nice and dandy that, you know, he wants to play for the team and he's going to play for him in the meantime. It's not like he's withholding his services or anything like that. But, you know, John Tortorella has had multiple interviews since Dubois said that he wants out and basically said, you know, I can't coach him. I don't want to coach guys who don't want to be here.
Right. And you can't blame for Tortorella for being like that, right? Like, as hard as you could say, well, maybe Tortorella just needs to shut his mouth when all this is going on, but like, he's just speaking the truth, man. Like, how do you coach somebody who doesn't want to be there? How do you create a winning culture when a guy doesn't want to be there? And he's your top guy. He's your go-to guy. It's just mind-blowing, really, like why he would want out. But really, Columbus kind of holds it all when you think about it, right? Because they don't owe Dubois a trade. And if he wants to walk away and say, I'm not playing, he's still Columbus's property. Mind you, they're not getting any value, but that just speaks to his character then. I think you got to start to question his character about who he is, you know? Like, I don't know.
I think it's interesting that all this has come out, but really in the Dubois instance, for sure, and even in the Laine to a lesser extent, but these players saying they want out, but not really saying why. And I don't know if that's to protect themselves, protect the team, or what the case is. But realistically, when you're looking at it from a fan perspective or even a media perspective, not knowing why these guys want to leave kind of raises some questions, raises some eyebrows, you know, like what's going on there that is causing the downfall. Like, I don't know what the answer is. And I think, you know, you could hear it in Tortorella's voice. He said, you know, he hasn't been told why he wants to leave. So it's a really frustrating situation for all these guys. And I honestly, it's not going to surprise me, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this going forward. You know, these young guys coming to the NHL, it's a young man's game now. And they want to dictate, you know, how much money they're getting, where they're going to play, how much ice time they're getting. And if they don't like things, they're going to ask for a trade, and they're not afraid to withhold their services. That being said, you know, I think a lot of the onus has to fall back on the GM, and they really have to, they can't cave. You know, a lot of guys talked about Dubas over the last few years about how he caved to Matthews and Marner, and even Nylander to a lesser extent, about their contract demands. But, you know, it seems like now that they did that, you know, a lot of the young guys are probably going to try to do the same thing. Now, that being said, you know, if you're not a top-end player, the GM's just going to laugh at you and be like, okay, well, sit then. But that's a tough decision to make when you're a GM, to have that kind of value not playing. I think it took a lot of balls for Ken Holland last year to say to PRV, like, if you don't like it, sit. And he did. He went and played in Finland, and Holland was under no obligation to try to trade him. So he didn't, and now he's back with the team. We'll see how it goes this season, but I do expect that it's going to be a continuing thing in the NHL, and we'll see how it affects CBA talks down the road, just with the way the game's going. And I wonder if they're going to get rid of the minimum salary or the maximum salary on these entry players at being at $975 or whatever the case is for these really high-end players. If that makes a difference or what it is. But I do think the game's changing, and that players are going to definitely have more of a say of what's going on. I hope it doesn't go the way of the NBA, where guys are buddies with everybody and they kind of want to gang up on certain teams and try to make it that way. But, if that's the case, that's the case. NBA is the biggest league in the world in sports, in my opinion, maybe other than soccer in Europe. But, the players are the highest paid. It's the most exciting game to watch, probably. NBA does a terrific job in terms of broadcasting and making sure that the top teams are on, being televised all the time, and their coverage follows that. So, good on them that they can do that. It's just, I'm sure from, the fans of particular teams that are smaller market where they're big guys. I'm sure Milwaukee was probably shaking in their boots a little bit at the prospect that Giannis was going to leave there, and he ended up re-signing, so good for them. But I definitely think that the NHL may have some changes coming up just based on, these young guys wanting out for basically no reason, or the reasons that they're not willing to tell anybody. So
yeah, as a GM, I'd be ready to start throwing in contracts now. Like, there needs to be a clause for the GM to be able to, this guy's got a contract. Like, they should be signing, like, have this in writing now. It's coming to, because
I don't know. Like, I guess you could go the NFL route where, they're non-guaranteed contracts. Like, the money,
if you want out, like, because it
re-sign
the contract, and the beginning, the GM's paying the player for his services, right? That's why the contract signed. So in Dubois' case, if you want out, well, you don't want. You're saying you're not providing the service that we need anymore. So why should the GM and the owner still have to pay him?
Yeah.
Like.
Well, and how can you trust him? Like,
but
even
it's
if he is going to
play, he doesn't even want to be
he's
there.
playing right now.
They're
but
not
he said
getting Dubois is 100%. Sure, he's still great. He's got God-given talent. He's going to go probably put up, 20, 30 goals in a 56-game season. But, he's not at the 100% that they need him to be. The 20, 30 goals is only going to be so good if he's back-checking and working just as hard in his own end too, right? So...
Oh, I agree. Yeah, like, he can say all the things he wants to say, or say all the right things, and say that he's going to work his hardest and do well for the team. But at the same token, if you want out, you obviously have strong feelings about the team and where they're going, and obviously you don't feel like you're a fit there going forward. So, I mean, I don't care what you say, you're not going to give 110% of your effort if that's the case. Whether that's the coach or whatever the issue is with wanting to be there. So they're in a tough spot. But I don't think Columbus is going to be in a rush. I don't think, like you said, they have no motivation to trade him really outside of him not wanting to be there. So unless he starts tanking and doesn't want to play, but on his part, I don't think that would be a good idea either, because no teams want him. So it's a tricky situation, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I was kind of looking at the standings today, just through the first half week of the season. They're looking at some different surprises and see how things are going. Like, obviously,
they won
being 0-2 to start the season.
I think they won. I thought I seen that earlier. They beat Washington, but
yeah, they were tied 3-3. I didn't see how the game finished, but Sid the kid looks good. He's got a couple goals already, which is good. But Pittsburgh dropping the first two, that's a bit of a surprise. Has there really been any surprises in your mind, like just going around the NHL? In terms of teams doing well, or players there's obviously been a few for me, and just in terms of guys retiring, like Corey Crawford, wanting to sign that deal in New Jersey and then retiring out of the blue. It seemed that was kind of surprising because it seemed like, that was really going to help out their goaltending with Crawford and Blackwood. That was kind of a big surprise. Obviously, nobody knew what was going on with Henrik Lundqvist and his heart condition, so that was a big surprise. I'll be surprised to see, or I'm interested to see if he's going to try to make a comeback next year. Obviously, if he's healthy, hopefully he is, and he can get back in the net for Washington. Hopefully that'll be a thing for him. But just in general, like anything of note that you want to talk about, just from the first half week of the season, and I guess some things you're looking forward to seeing over the next couple weeks.
Like I said, the one thing that kind of popped out to me was just Montreal's improvements, especially in Game 1 against Toronto. I mean, you go first game of the season for any team, right? Both teams are going to come out flying. They're going to bring it. And just on a 5-on-5 standpoint, I thought Montreal was the better team in that game. With that being said, that's to me, like, Toronto competes for the cup last 2-3 years, or should have been, and they've ran into a great team in Boston every time in the first round, right? So, I would say Montreal kind of is catching my attention early, especially what they're doing there and what seems to be going on. I obviously love the fact Ottawa came out and won Game 1 on home ice, and it was a 5-3 game. It was nice to see him take care of Toronto that way, but then Toronto follows up the next night with just a dominant performance. I think it's been just good. Like Avalanche, St. Louis stomped them a game, and then they come out flying. I don't know who they beat last night. Beat nothing, but
8.
So
8. That was St. Louis too. they
yeah.
St.
So I
Louis
mean, like it just shows like
was...
there's a lot of. I think it's going to be a feeling out process. Same with the Islanders, like. The Islanders blanked the Rangers to start the season, and then the Rangers blanked the Islanders last night 5-0. So I think right now, like, there's just so much to pinpoint, this team or that team or this or that. Like, it's hard in the first 2 or 3 games to see, but I think there's this season for the fans, even though it's not the same with the fans being in the rink, I just think right now, it's just nice to have hockey back on the TV. My son, he's down there. He's got his mini stick. He's got the net set up. He's shooting pucks and balls constantly. He's talking about hockey. He's got the game on at noon. He's got the game on at 7 tonight. He's ready to go. I think from a fan standpoint, it's just so nice to see the boys back playing hockey, right?
Yeah, I think regardless of who you root for or anything like that, I think everybody can agree to it's just nice to have some normalcy in terms of watching hockey in January, even though everything that's going on in the world, whether it's, what's going on in the States with the presidential election or COVID or whatever the case is, obviously the last year and a bit's been hard for everybody. So it's kind of nice to finally have something back that, not being in a bubble even, just having some hockey teams going to other hockey arenas and playing hockey, whether they have fans or not there. I think that's kind of nice to see. It's nice to see the games being televised regularly and having all the analysts, talking on the TV about the teams. Just, seeing Friedman last night. I'm a big Friedman fan, and just seeing him talk about what was going on, and hearing Kevin Bieksa and Anthony Stewart, those guys just talk about the game. And, I think that made everybody feel hopefully a little bit better about what's going on, just being confined to our houses, especially here in Ontario. I do think that, one more surprise, I guess, that we didn't touch on, that was kind of the big thing in Leafs land anyways, was Joe Thornton being on the top line with Matthews and Marner. I thought they were atrocious in Game 1 against Montreal. Started getting some chances in that first game on Friday night against Ottawa, and then last night, really, I thought they were the best line in the game. Thornton looked like he got his step back and looked like he's actually going pretty well for the old guy. And Matthews and Marner, obviously, were doing their thing last night, so it was kind of nice to see. But that was a big surprise for me when Keith said that. But definitely have enjoyed it so far, and I hope that they can keep it going. Outside of that, I think that's it for the first show. Maybe next time we'll get some questions from some fans, and we can kind of include that at the end. That would be kind of nice. Maybe get some other fans on that we know that we can get and talk about some different teams, whether it's the Wings or the Flames or whoever they're a fan of. Obviously, the Colorado Avalanche looks like they're the Stanley Cup favorites, so it'd be nice to get
I got a buddy there we can get in contact
from
with.
somebody else.
He's a big Avs fan, so we'll get his input too later on in some future shows down the road. And all fans and just viewers who will be listening and hear this first podcast, we're open to feedback, criticism, and all the above. We just want to make this better and great for you, and not only that, just for ourselves. This is just a hobby for Ryan and I, and we're really enjoying this, talking about the sport that we love so much, and it's just been great. This has been a good hour, Rye. It's just been awesome, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from some listeners. If you want to call us out on our bullshit, I'd love to hear it. If you want some comments or some likes or whatever, we welcome it. We'll try to get to as many of you as we can. If you have any questions for the next episode, please let us know, and we'll certainly include that. But yeah, going forward, thanks for listening, and it was a great show,
Ryan.
and hope you guys